Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Test Tube Plus. This is a podcast style show where we cover one topic each week and we get really into it. This week we're talking about gender identity. It's a really important topic. We're talking about terms used to describe gender. We're talking about what gender is, why it matters in the science of it, and that's what we're getting to today.
It's been a while since we last visited Test Tube Plus. Though nothing much has changed, he still sits at the edge of his alternative universe. And again, despite what his shirt says, the only science in progress is the chip running in his laptop and the sound waves bouncing off his microphone. And most of what he says is not much different from the last video we critiqued. But as the title suggests, he claims that science has proven there are more than two genders, which is the farthest thing from the truth. Actually, the title of this video is clickbait.
What is the science saying about gender identity?
Science says nothing about gender identity because gender identity is a social construct created by confused minds.
Gender is something that is taught to us. It's not something that we are born with. Gender is taught to us from the moment we are born. They give us, little hats, little blue or pink hats, little blankets.
Gender is not taught to us. The behavior traits of the two genders are taught to us based on evolution and a social construct as to how society expects the two genders to behave or dress, such as girls wearing pink and boys wearing blue. And the construct can change from time to time, as you were about to mention. Gender is not taught, it is determined through DNA. And there are only one of two ways to go, male or female. Anything else is just wishful thinking.
And a lot of people make it uncomfortable to talk about because some people are uncomfortable discussing why they are how they are. It's really hard to get that kind of self-awareness, but it affects everything that we do.
Yeah, it's all a matter of degree. Let's face it, we all have our mental defects, but the majority of us are able to function in civilized society, while others need to be medicated or just locked up.
Did I say that right? Should it be the other way around? Blue for boys, pink for girls? Does that make more sense? It really doesn't. And in fact, in the Women's Journal in the early 1900s, pink was a more decided and stronger color, is more suitable for the boy, while blue, which is more delicate and dainty, is prettier for the girl. That was written in the Women's Journal, early 1900s. These things change over time.
I didn't look this up. I'll let you have this one. The reason I did not look it up is because color, as you've already admitted, is irrelevant. And nothing you say makes any sense.
Culture determines gender.
Wrong. Culture or any given society determines how the two genders should behave. Again, it is DNA that determines gender.
And a 2010 study of transgender people said that they knew their gender identity by age 5.
Yeah, and many of those realized later on in life that they were wrong at age 5. That's something you yourself will admit to later on in this video.
So to imply, as some do occasionally, that transgender is a new thing, it's not new. We're just slowly starting to understand it.
Understand that transgender is a state of mind and not proof there are more than two genders.
Gender is put upon us.
Again, you fucking moron. Gender is put upon us through DNA.
And the fluidity of that gender is because we grow and we age and we change.
Yes, exactly. People change and realize they were not who they thought they were at age 5. Thank you.
So we have the biological gender. We've got gender identity, which includes transgender. We've got gender roles. Those are very important for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, if you're into B and D.
But they're also not important.
Well, make up your fucking mind. Talk about confused.
Sexual orientation, which includes heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual, asexual, all of those are part of the fluidity of our gender.
It's called gender dysphoria.
So let's break this down scientifically. While you're in the womb, every fetus is a female. They all start that way. The Y chromosome is added at the right time, which makes the body present as male. But even then, sometimes things don't develop properly. The clitoris comes from the same fetal tissue as a penis. It's called a homologous organ, which means that sometimes the clitoris is oversized and sometimes the penis is dramatically undersized.
Anomalies and mutations does not prove there are more than two genders.
And that happens. It happens fairly often. Sometimes both exist, which is a hermaphrodite or an intersex situation. This happens quite often.
Yeah, both exist. A person is born with both male and female genitalia. Again, only two genders. You don't like the word hermaphrodite? Fine, call yourself intersex. But guess what? A hermaphrodite have both male and female genitalia, and no more than that, because there are only two fucking genders. What is so difficult to understand?
Some animals, not really humans, but some animals are gynandromorphs, which is some cells are male and some cells are female. It sometimes will manifest as, say, a bird that's half one color and half another color. Hyenas, also something from the animal world, their clitoris is sometimes called a protopenis, again illustrating that these are homologous organs. The protopenis on a hyena can actually get an erection, they can have sex with it. These are female hyenas, and they can even urinate through it.
Again, only two genders. You know the thing that makes me laugh? I came across this video because I was doing a search on videos debunking ghost sightings. And take a look at what I found.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D News Plus today. I am Trace. This is episode 3 of 5 on paranormal. So far we've talked about what the paranormal even is and where it came from. We've talked about the research into paranormal. There is a lot, by the way. Thank you guys for your comments yesterday. And there's even stuff that science can explain and can't explain. We're going to talk about the first one today, and of course, later on this week, we're going to talk about why you should even care. Like, what's the point of being skeptical of this stuff anyway? So, we already know that a phenomenon cannot be confirmed as paranormal all the time. The scientific method has gaps in it. You know, you take your problem, you hypothesize, and then you test out your hypothesis, and you form a conclusion based on that, and then you form another hypothesis, and you test it again. And sometimes the paranormal just doesn't fit into that system. It doesn't fit that definition. But if you step back and you talk about specific instances that seem paranormal, there are times that you can explain that they're really, really not. Let's start with ghosts and why your house probably isn't haunted. I mean, just from a logical perspective, first of all, America's only had houses in the way that we think of them now for a few hundred years. Europe has had houses like this for thousands of years, and in parts of Africa and Asia, they've been populated for so long that every house would have to be haunted. Think about it. But anyway, Richard Wiseman, a former magician and now psychologist at the University of Hertfordshire, wrote a book on ghosts called Paranormality. He stresses that it could be as simple as the power of suggestion and fear. It's like the placebo effect. When we're afraid, we respond physically, not just mentally, right? Blood flows from our fingertips into the major muscles of our body to prepare us for the fight or flight response. And this can make you feel cold, which is something people commonly say when they're experiencing a ghost, right? They're afraid, and so they feel cold. It also makes you hypervigilant, so you're ready in case something happens. And that makes you notice things like voices or footsteps or things that you may not have noticed before you were being hypervigilant.
You want to talk about having it both ways? When it comes to ghost sightings, it's all in your head. Your feelings don't count. But when it comes to gender identity, it's not mental. Your feelings count. And notice he's not wearing his Science in Progress shirt for this video, because he doesn't need to convince you that science is in progress when it's not. And his video we're covering now, Science Says There Are More Than Two Genders, was on the sidebar of recommended videos. So my search for finding videos debunking ghost sightings ground to a halt. So let's now cut through the bullshit and get right down to the brass tacks.
They looked at gender in the brains of rats. They added an enzyme called estradiol, and that inhibited DNA methyltransferase, which is to say it changed their DNA just a little bit, or it inhibited a way that DNA naturally changes. This caused a change in the gender of these rats. Now, they didn't go interview them, they observed them. So physically, these rats were female, say the researchers, but in their reproductive behavior, they behaved as males. That's the closest we can get to observing a gender change in animals. But if you look even further, their brains also structurally transformed. And this was after the sexual differentiation period had ended. So say like rat puberty. Normally that's when sexual differentiation would blossom. However, after that, it's thought to be set. And it turns out you can affect gender in rats by adding this enzyme.
The research he talks about does not even suggest science says there are more than two genders. And it's so funny that he provides links to everything else he talks about, but he does not have a link to the research where science actually changed the thinking process of rats. Science did not say there are more than two genders. Science basically showed that you can turn a rat into a homosexual. And the same can be done with humans, or just about any other life form out there. It's exactly what parents are doing with their children, such as that 8-year-old drag queen up in Canada, which myself and thousands of others have talked about. The experiment they performed with rats, they injected drugs into the rats to change the behavior of rats, to make female rats behave like a male rat and male rats to behave like a female rat. And they began injecting these drugs into the rats at birth. In one experiment, they even castrated a male rat at birth, which later in its life prompted the rat to behave as a female. But at the end of the day, no matter what they did to the rats, they were still biological male and female. There's still only two genders. You can change a rat's way of thinking, but there are still only two genders. And it's frightening to think that people are doing this to their own children, simply based on a feeling or thought their children are having. And that science is basically proving that it can be done. No, really, this makes religious brainwashing look good. In fact, in retrospect, I'm happy all my parents did to me was thump a Bible over my head. That's not to say I advocated. Both are bad things to do to a child. But it's all a matter of degree. It's a little easier to renounce your baptism than to renounce the drugs injected into you at birth to make you think you're something you're not. If I had a choice between having the Bible thumped over my head or being injected with drugs to make me think I'm something I'm not, I'll take the Bible thumping. It's the lesser of the two evils. And if 15 years ago you told me I would be saying this today, I would have kicked your ass. Yes, the world has gone insane. And all Mr. Test Tube Baby is talking about in this video is behavior and how we're taught, both in evolutionary terms as well a social construct. He hasn't proved anything. So do me a favor, Mr. Test Tube Baby, shut the fuck up about gender identity, because whether you like it or not, there are only two genders. Period. End of story. Thanks for stopping by and for tuning in, and please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until we talk again, I want you all to be well and enjoy life.